Hello and welcome to a tip and a sip. Tonight, we are going to be talking about how a realtor gets paid. Ready, set, and go. All right. So, how do we as realtors get paid? Now, you might have heard your mom's uncle's only brother's only daughter talk about it and say, well, you get paid 6% no matter what. Do we really? That's news to me. First and foremost, let me just say that it's actually closer to 5.15% because it's all negotiable. Okay, whenever we do a listing agreement, every bit of that is negotiable. In fact, whenever I sit down and I have a conversation with my clients, whenever I'm listing, I actually have different tiers. I have a 6%, 6.5%, and 7%. I show you where your money is being spent from a standpoint of that's all that I ask for. I don't go in and say, well, I need you to pay for this or pay for that. Nope. All that is included in what I do right up front. But just for the sake of 6% to show you how an agent actually gets paid, let's hit those numbers. Okay? So let's say 6% on a $300,000 home. I would say the median is closer to about 415, 420, but just to make numbers a little bit easier for me, I'm going to keep it at 300,000. All right, so at 300,000, what are we looking at? At 6%, that's $18,000. Congratulations. Yay. That means I get a whole dollar. All right, so think of that, a whole dollar. All right, so with that whole dollar, $18,000, I'm making the big bucks. If I sell one home a month at $300,000, $18,000, that's over $200,000. I wish that's what we kept. But to be honest with you, the way that we run things is basically the listing agent is putting money together, okay, to split with the buyer's agent to help bring people in to take a look at the home. Now, some people do 5%, 6%. Like I said, the average right now is actually 5.15%. So it's not even 6%. All right. So we'll kind of, look at it like that. But with my tiers, I have Bless Your Heart, Grandma's Cooking. We all know how good Grandma's Cooking is. And then we have Certified Southern, 6, 6.5, and 7. But sometimes I might do a little bit extra. I might add something in, or I might say, hey, I'm going to do my Grandma's Cooking tier, but I'm going to do it at 6% because there's some situations. And I'm able to do that because it's all negotiable. It's not just a straight 6%, which gets cut in half to 3%. But let's go ahead and run into some numbers so you can see what realtors actually get paid. All right. So with the split, you have the first split, 50%, usually 3%, 3%. So at 3%, what are we looking at? Of 300,000, that's actually only 9,000, not 18,000. All right, so let's go ahead and split a dollar. So here's my dollar, here's my half dollar. All right, that was my pretty face. In fact, let's see here. Oh, yeah. There was my pretty face right there, and we split it. All right, we split it. Gosh, I suck at this, don't I? No, I can't do it. All right, so half a dollar. So, yay. All right, that's great. But then you have 10%, let's just say, taken off from the main company, whether that's Coldwell Banker, Keller Williams, Century 21, and that fluctuates with each company. And again, I'm trying to use some easy numbers, so I'm going to say 10%. So if this is now 3%, we're going to take 10% of this. So now 10%. So I'm going to say that's about 10% right there. So let's take that. All right, so that takes care of Coldwell Banker. Now, what about the local company where you hang your license, where you have your office and everything like that? For me, that's Seacoast Advantage. By the way, Coldwell Banker Seacoast Advantage, number one, a couple of years in a row. And I would say, a couple of years in a row, that's nationally 21, 22 years, I got to be honest with you. After 2 decades, I kind of, throw that out of my mind for Southeast North Carolina. But just to let you know, I am with a great company that I trust wholeheartedly and love where I am at. So with them, there's a percentage difference there. That is usually 50 to 30% of what they are looking at to take. So let's just say that I'm going to keep 75% of that. All right, so if I'm looking at 75%, main company fee was $900. All right, so let's go back to the numbers right quick. $9,000, 3%, okay? $900, 10% of that, that gives me $8,100. Now, with the area company split, 75, that gives them $2,025. That's where secretaries, staff, whatever, however you want to look at it, your broker in charges, everything along those lines, that's where that money comes out of. So now I have $6,075. Well, that's great. That's great money. All right, so let's take our 25%. All right. And that looks like that might be more of a third. So let's do that. All right, so here we go. All right, so now we have this. Most agents can either pay out of their pocket, which means more things, or they're part of a team. I happen to be part of a team, and then guess what? There's another split there. Sometimes it's 50%, sometimes it's 30%. Again, the numbers are a little bit different. I'm going to say 25% is what they take. So with that said, if I'm keeping 75% of that, that means about $1,500. Now again, that takes care of, they might have feed their team members leads, so that's where money goes to pay for that. Facebook ads, extra ads, that's where money goes for. Printing, mailers going out, that's where some of that can go out, because if your team's not paying for it, then you're paying for it out of your pocket, all right, as an individual agent. But any way you want to look at it, let's just say that's another 25%, $1,500. Now you have $4,556. So let's go ahead and take another fourth from this. All right, so this is what we're left with. Now, depending on the team and the cost of business with what's going on, photography and everything like that, usually I say there's another 10 to 15% of the money that you are still having to pay out of your pocket to take care of some things. That might be gas, going to, having conversations with your clients, doing certain things and whatnot. So that's another 10 to 15%. So let's go ahead and show that right here. And we'll rip that off. And we're going to keep the pretty face, even though it's only half. So now this is what we're left with. And that's another $683 on $300,000. So that gives us an average of 1.25% or $3,873. Now, with that said, you own your own business. Taxes, insurance, FICA, all that other stuff. If you are an LLC, you got to take money out for that. Now, I'm not going to rip that, but go ahead and say another $800. We're now at $3,000 on a $300,000 home. 1%. Now, I'm going to stick with 1% instead of $3,000 because, like I said, the median price is a little bit higher than that. And I want to be fair with the information that I'm giving you. I never want anybody to think that, I'm trying to skew things because, statistics can always be looked at different ways, and I always want to be as honest as I can. But that's basically how a listing agent makes their money, and it's at about 1%. So even though they're negotiating at 6%, at the end of it, they're usually ending up with about 1% of that, and that's to take care of their family. Now, on the other side of the coin is your buyer's agent, or they sometimes call it seller's agent, which kind of confuses me because the listing agent I would think is the seller's agent. So I try to keep it at buyer's agent. So They have what they call a buyer's agency agreement, where you have the listing agreement, where all the numbers and everything is spelled out and how we're going to sell your home. On the other side, there's the buyer's agency agreement. And on that, it says, hey, the buyer is responsible and on the hook for da 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 percent or da 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 amount. Again, it's negotiable. That's the great thing about this. So we're going to stick with that 3% since we did the 6% and say that they negotiated 3%. Now, usually what we see is that's where the listing agent has already negotiated, whether that's a 6%, 5%, anything along those lines. So you might look at 2.5%, 2.25%, 3%, 4%, depending on where they end up. It doesn't matter from that standpoint because all of it's laid out for you. All right, so there's some tips right there. Now, with that said, the NAR has been going through a settlement agreement with some stuff that's happening out in the Midwest. At the end of the day, there's been some misinformation. They are saying that sellers no longer have to pay the buyer's agent. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard because agents like to get paid. They like to eat. I like to eat. I like to take care of my family. And if there's no compensation, or if it's on the buyer, guess what's going to happen? Prices are going to fall. Now, you might be saying, Paul, that's not a bad thing, and I will agree with you that that's not the worst thing to ever happen. But let me ask you, if the buyer is already having to put down a down payment, anywhere between 3 to 20%, pay closing costs, lawyer's fees, due diligence, earnest money, inspections, other inspections, more inspections. Do you think they're going to have another 3% to take care of their agent? Well, Paul, all you do is you just open the door for us. You unlock the door and you let us in. There are some agents that do that and only that, and to that I go, you're right. They're not even worth 3%. I ain't gonna lie. But if they're worth their salt, they're the ones that got you to those houses. They're the ones that set you up into a system for you to find those houses. They've told you how to look for those houses. They've given you information about those houses. And then once you write the offer to purchase and you go under contract, then the negotiations begin. And I'll go and tell you, that's where I shine. Because again, anybody can open up a door if you have the right equipment and everything, because you got to have that as an agent. But I shine as a master certified negotiator expert. Some of the letters after my name that I have, kind of like DSS and stuff like doctors have, I got specializations also because I'm super. Yeah. I'll stop. It's the sweet tea, I'll be honest with you. Too much sugar. Yeah, that just doesn't sound right. I don't think you could ever have too much sugar in sweet tea. That's some good stuff. Naomi outdid herself with this sweet tea. All right, so what the settlement actually is saying, since they're saying sellers don't have to buy, there's actually only two things that the settlement is actually kind of hitting on. And there's negotiations and stuff going on with that. And there goes that word again, negotiations, because it's not a straight 6%. It's closer to 5.15%. But with that said, let's just say what they are saying is you can't no longer have the percentages in the MLS. So they're going to have it somewhere else because, again, agents like to eat, they like to live, they like to know how much money they're going to be making, okay? So that will no longer be in the MLS. The other big change that is happening, and I say big, it's huge. Huge. Sorry. I'm not good at impressions. Anyway, is the buyer's agency agreement that I was talking about. Used to be you didn't have to worry about signing that. You could get into somebody's car, you could follow them, you can show houses all day long up until you are ready to write that offer to purchase. The big change with that is that now needs to be done right up front. That way everybody's on board. I have always been somebody that I give the information to my people, let them read through it at their leisure, and then from there we sit down, we talk about it, answer any questions that they have before any signatures are done. To me, that makes sense. All right, some of it's red tape. Some of it you definitely want to take a look at. And that's why I always give people the opportunity to look through everything before I say, yep, let's do this and let's make this make sense. So it does state that the buyer is on the hook. So let's say you have a for sale by owner, okay? For sale by owner. I go to them, hey, will you take care of me at 3%? Nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go back to the buyer and say, hey, Mr. Buyer, you said that you would pay me 3%. For sale by owner is not going to encompass that into the house and everything. So now, along with down payment and we are now at the point of we're going to be tacking on another 3%. Do you still want to go take a look at this house? More than likely, they're going to be like, no, I'm good. I would rather use the 3% for everything. But here's a little secret where they go, the seller's paying for this. Who's the one getting the loan? The buyer's the one that ends up paying for this anyway. So it's not the seller that's paying for it. Now, is he giving up some of his proceeds to make sure that he's getting a quality realtor to help take care of and then also make sure that the other realtor's taken care of? Yes, he is. But at the end of the day, it is the buyer who's paying for this. Okay, so I want to make sure that you understand that. So money now has the realtor, between 2 to 4%, like I said, 3%, and that's just going to happen. Now, we get to the point of all the percentages again. It's not 6% that the buyer's making, buyer's agent. It's not 3% because they work for a company. Within that company, they work for, a regional company. They might be on a team. But where after the team, you might have a couple extra on the buyer side. Think of all the time that they're doing researching the homes for you. Then think of the gas that they're using to go preview some of these homes before taking you out there and then taking you out there. So there is time and money wrapped up into it so that at the end of the day, the buyer's agent is also at 1%. But that's how a realtor gets paid. And it's not a bad thing. So again, I gave you some of the stats earlier. Basically, most home sales are between 415 to 420. You want to know how many homes are usually sold by an average realtor? 12. So that basically means your average realtor makes between 45 and 58,000. Let's just say 50,000. Now, I'm not your average realtor. I like to eat. I like to eat well. I like to take care of you guys. You might be sitting there and saying, hey, Paul, some of this doesn't add up. If the buyer's doing this and you're taken care of, and aren't you going to go for the higher percentage because you want to make sure that you get paid? So you're going to just show homes that are at, making sure that you get 3% instead of 2.5%. I will go ahead and say, I don't know everybody's motive. I'm going to say that there's tons of realtors out there that there is a chance that a real estate agent might do that. I'm not going to sit here and, blow smoke up your skirt and say, no, we are all perfect, because we're not. But I can make a promise to you that I never, ever look at that. Whenever they're like, the MLS will no longer have it, I'm like, not a big deal. As long as there is a number, as long as I'm getting paid. I do got to make sure I get paid. I like to eat, all right? And here's why I can say that and say that with confidence. It's because how I do business. I do business by referral, which means for me to do a job, if you go to a restaurant and you have a good experience and good food and everything was good, do you go out and shout it from the rooftops, this restaurant was good? Does Tony the Tiger say they're good? No, it's great. I need to be great for you. I need to do a job for you. For me to get paid, how I get paid is by taking care of you and going above and beyond and trying to shatter your expectations, to lay down standard expectations so that you know what's going on, that I'm taking care of you, and then to exceed those expectations. That's my job. Because why would I bicker all over 0.5% that might equal $1,000? Maybe on a $450,000 home, whenever I do an outstanding job for my clients, for my friends, for my neighbors, and for my family, then what I'm able to do for you guys is do that for the next person that you know. And then it makes you look like a great person in front of them because you've hooked them up with somebody that is going to do a great, outstanding job for them. That's why I am Sweet Tea Realty, Southern Living personified. is because I want to take care of you, and that's how I get paid. That's how I do my job on a daily basis for you guys. So the tip for today, use Sweet Tea Realty because I'm going to take care of you. Now that's a great tip. Now, hopefully I've given you some more tips from a standpoint of understanding how a realtor actually gets paid. It's not a full 6%. It's not always 6%. So off of $300,000, it's not $18,000. It's 1%, which equals $3,000 at that point. And on a yearly basis, most realtors are getting paid around $50,000. They're selling about 12 homes, one home a month. All right. So if they are hitting that regular medium of 300,000, all right, and they're only making 3,000, that's $36,000. Anyways, at the end of the day, I want you sitting on your front porch sipping sweet tea. Okay? Because that's Southern living personified, and that's what I do to take care of you. And guys, that's how a realtor gets paid. God bless.